Hi class, my name is Patricia Figueroa and I will be doing a presentation on the Fukushima disaster as well as the pros and cons of nuclear power plants. First, let's begin with the nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is the splitting of uranium into smaller atoms using neutrons to initiate the process. In this equation, as shown in the slide, you can see a neutral atom hitting uranium-235 and becoming uranium-236. This uranium-236 only exists for a split moment before splitting into barium and krypton, two smaller atoms. How does nuclear fission produce energy? Like a biological fission, the uranium atom is splitting into smaller atoms such as barium and krypton when bombarded with neutrons. When this occurs, the mass of the products are slightly less than the mass of the reactants. Because of this, even when it is only a slight mass difference, Einstein's famous equation states that it is possible to obtain a tremendous amount of energy from a small amount of matter. To put it into context, 1 kilogram of uranium-235 undergoing a nuclear fission produces the same energy as burning 3 million kilograms of coal. In nuclear fission, it is important to know that the neutrons in the product side is faster than the neutrons in the reactant side. Because of this, for a nuclear plant to be self-sustaining, there needs to be a moderator. What is CANDU? CANDU is an acronym for Canadian Deuterium Uranium. It is a Canadian design of a pressurized heavy water reactor, PHWR. It uses heavy water, deuterium oxide as a coolant and moderator, and natural uranium for fuel. The fuel bundles moving allows for maximum burnup of all fuels in the reactor vessel. Deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen, and as heavy water, it acts as a neutron moderator, slowing down the movements enough so that they can react with the fissile U-35 again. In this diagram of a nuclear plant, you can see here the reactor vessel, the heat source, which has fuel rods containing nuclear fuel pellets. These give out a lot of energy, and with the coolant and moderator, this is a self-sustaining plant. As mentioned in our Chemistry and Society class, Professor Latimer pointed out that one CANDU bundle can produce as much energy as 300 to 400 tons of coal. So why not use nuclear energy more? Because disasters like the Fukushima nuclear disaster can occur. Fukushima nuclear disaster. On March 11, 2011, a major earthquake hit the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant and disabled the power supply and cooling of 3 Fukushima Daiichi reactors. This caused nuclear meltdowns of 3 large cores and resulted in releases of high radioactive levels. There was no deaths or cases of radiation sickness from the nuclear accident itself, but an evacuation of over 100,000 people had to be in place to prevent this. However, official record states that 1,000 deaths were accounted for from maintaining the evacuation. In more detail, the Great East Japan earthquake caused a large tsunami which hit the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. This resulted in great damage and released an abundant amount of radiation in the air. When the earthquake hit, all reactors from the power plants were shut down automatically, and after inspection, there was no significant damage. The reactors were robust but vulnerable to the tsunami. Power from backup generators ran the residual heat removal (RHR) system, cooling the pumps in all but 3. 3 units located at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant lost power due to the tsunami that flooded the site. Because of this, the overheating caused 3 nuclear meltdowns of 3 large cores in the Fukushima power plant. The meltdown called for an evacuation because radiation contamination was possible due to the breach of containment and escape into the environment. What happened inside the Fukushima Daiichi reactors? Major fuel melting happened early on within the 3 Fukushima Daiichi reactors. The fuel were mostly contained aside from some volatile fission products that were vented early on. Some soluble ones were leaking with water specifically from Unit 2 where it was definitely breached. Cooling was provided from external sources. A steady heat removal path and use of treated recycled water also provided cooling. Temperatures eventually decreased at the reactor pressure vessels to under boiling point and were then stable. Are the risks still worth it? You decide. There are many editorials out there that expresses opinions on both sides, and it can sometimes be biased with a certain side. Here are some pros and cons to make you aware and decide for yourself. Pros and cons in using nuclear energy. Pros. It is significantly lower in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions. It has low operating fuel costs. It has a large power generating capacity and has continuous supply. It is efficient. Nuclear waste can be reduced through waste cycling. It is reliable, unlike solar and wind, which relies heavily on weather conditions. It is easily transported. The amount of uranium needed is easily transported compared to amount of coal needed and its transportation. The cons. The radioactive waste. The nuclear waste possess radioisotopes with long half-lives, meaning that they can stay in the atmosphere longer in one form or the other. The cons. Radioactive waste. The cons. The radioactive wastes, the nuclear waste possess radioisotopes with long half-lives, meaning that they can stay in the atmosphere longer in one form or the other. Nuclear accidents such as the Fukushima or the Chernobyl can occur. Nuclear radiation, including the production of plutonium, high investment costs and requires 5 to 10 years to be constructed, approximately. One reason being that people are usually opposed to living beside one because nuclear accidents such as Chernobyl or Fukushima can occur, and uranium usually only exists in certain countries. Here are some pictures that highlight some of the pros and cons of using nuclear energy. What is your position on the use of nuclear energy as a source of our growing needs? A. Pursue. B. Abandon. C. Unsure. I will start a thread down below and you guys can leave comments or opinions down there. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Bye.